Startup Iceland started as a grassroots initiative to bring a community together around founders, starting new companies, investing, and building new things based out of Iceland. Yes, ideas are important, money is important, but more importantly, talking to the right people is far more important than those two other things. Today, we have social media. You can make connections to anybody through many of these channels. They have thousands and thousands and millions of followers. How do you get them to take interest in what you're doing? Nothing is going to happen on its own. And the founder community is a leadership community because they are usually the ones who take the first step. So conferences provide a fantastic platform to do that. One of my investor, Bree Pettis, who is coming to this year's conference, actually came to Startup Iceland as a speaker, who became a friend and a mentor and now an investor in my venture fund.
We're still in the huge potential early stage. There's a lot more founders here than there was in 2014. So the community here is growing. Normally, I sort of poo-poo academics in general, but the ecosystem here, the university appears to be pretty solid. Like, people come out of that having actually learned things.
And government should focus on supporting other industries.
Would say Ergul is a venture partner, and she's also has invested in founders from a lot of different communities.
We saw what happened with COVID. I mean, we saw it globally. So many countries that relied on tourism went broke.
The startup journey is never a transaction, it's a transformation. It takes time to build these relationships, but you're never going to build a relationship unless you meet somebody and you start this conversation.
I think most people do not start big companies by being dumb. Your job as an investor or as a friend or as a mentor or as just somebody who's a colleague is to get them to a point where they're walking on the path to make the right decision.
Malik was a founder. He used to be a journalist with a lot of prominent news outlets.
In 1997, John Callahan comes to my office. I used to work for Forbes. He's pitching me on his new company called Chemdex. He does not know that I'm a chemistry major. They're basically blowing smoke at me, essentially. And I called them out on it. And I just said, whatever the conversation was. And I write about it because I really like the idea. 2006, I go to the True offices. There was no True office at that time. They just was a rental space. And I walk into a meeting with Tony Conrad, Phil Black, Tony Schneider, and John Callahan. And so I was just like, oh, crap. I'm not going to get any money right now because I was so bad to this person back then, though I wasn't. Like, I was good in the article. And he joined my board. And for the first 1 year, I had a coffee with him, sort of like you, instead of a board meeting. And I think that was so much more influential in how things were in the long term. Funny thing is, like a year after the company, I lived very dangerously, as Bala knows. I smoked, I drank, and I partied all night long, and I worked like a maniac. So I had a heart attack, and I was 39 years old. I thought I was Superman. Like, nothing can happen to me. John made sure that my mom flew from India, took care of the True team, took care of her, and that's what I mean is that's not a transaction. There is any founder, any VC at that point is like, oh shit, I invested in this famous person's company. He's about to die. Let's bail. Instead, they doubled down and said, no, we're going to make sure that things happen the right way. That's the investor you want to work with. Look for that human touch. Even if we fail, we will fail with dignity.
When founders meet with other founders, they share ideas, they share what's working with each other, and that usually enables everybody to pull each other up.
What puts us a little bit apart is that the conditions in our fields, our geothermal fields, are a little bit different because of the proximity of the ocean. And also, sustainable thinking and circularity have been around at HS Orca from the beginning. Today, we sometimes underestimate the relentless work that went into developing geothermal technology. And the effort that still is needed when you harness enter a new geothermal field. And the location in Svartsengi was not easy. The composition of the fluid that comes up is difficult, and it created a number of issues for the facilities and for the equipment. So the list of solutions that had to be found was simply endless. So over time, several companies have grown, stopped by, or settled in our resource park, and each of them using several resource streams. Blue Lagoon is probably the best known. It's a legendary cornerstone in the resource park. It started very humbly as a place where the locals could bathe in geothermal brine. Obviously, for a power company, it wasn't really straightforward to manage this. The Blue Lagoon started as a part of HS Orca. It became a separate company in the early 90s, still partly owned by HS Orca, and the companies separated ways in terms of ownership only a few years ago. But the Blue Lagoon is still in the resource park. It's still going. It's not going anywhere. It receives over 1 million visitors per year in a normal year, and it uses almost all of our resource streams. Another company is Orf Genetics, specialized in molecular farming, and it's more of a typical startup as you would know them today. It has its origins in scientific research of highly educated individuals. And Björn Nörva, one of the founders, he will be telling you more about Orf later today. All I'll say is that when Orf was choosing a location to grow, they settled close to our Svartsengi power plant.
While I was working at McGill University in Montreal in 2000, I used genetic engineering to clone and transfer a stress gene from a Arctic plant into another plant. And the idea was to improve growth and volume of those plants for crop plants in general. And it was very successful. In contrast to conventional plant breeding, the genetic engineering is a very powerful technology. It's very fast to change or produce new traits in plants. You have access to large gene pool. You basically can use genes from any organism around. It's very precise, and you can produce unlimited numbers of traits, something that you can't even see in plants today. We can use this same technology to produce valuable proteins in the plant. This is something that is called molecular farming. And this was the general idea behind Orf Genetics when we started that in 2000. And we use the barley seed as a factory to produce valuable proteins. And the general idea or the technology is that you start by taking a biopsy from the animal of interest. It's cow. We even know that they're trying lions or whatever. Doesn't matter what the animal is. You isolate the stem cells from this tissue, and then you multiply these stem cells, and then you differentiate these stem cells into fat cells, muscle cells, and so forth. To be able to multiply those cells and differentiate them later on, you need these animal growth factors. This is a rather complicated technology, but it's based on first designing and developing a DNA program that you introduce into the backbone, genetic backbone of the barley plant. And then you cultivate this plant, harvest the seeds, and you purify the protein from the seed. So the protein we selected are called growth factors, both animal and human growth factors. And these tiny proteins, they control the differentiation of stem cells and also proliferation of stem cells. So they're extremely important. And there are many different markets for those growth factors. In medical research, in skincare, what we basically exploited when we launched our BioFit skincare line some years ago. They're also used to produce these major biotech drugs today. Some of them are even drugs today. And now we are seeing a completely new application of those growth factors, using them to help to produce stem cell produced meat.
We offer founders to have a 90-second pitch during the conference, and we encourage founders to have a booth outside. So during the 90-second pitch, you can pique the interest of the audience, and during the breaks, when the audience comes out, they get to come and see and meet you in your booth.
I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Green Bites. We use artificial intelligence to help restaurants reduce their food waste. Food waste contributes so much greenhouse gas emissions, more than 3 times the global aviation industry. So it's really important we reduce this. The way we help restaurants reduce their waste is by telling them the right amount of food to order. To do that, we have a progressive web application that breaks down menus, tracks inventory, and predicts future sales using machine learning algorithms. Our machine learning algorithms takes in past sales, it takes in weather data and holidays to make predictions about what's going to be sold in the future. And by telling them know what they should be ordering, we let them know exactly how many kilos of tomatoes and chicken they should be ordering in the next couple of days. If they agree with our suggestions, they can approve it and send it out to all of their suppliers with a few clicks.
This is a very effective way to get conversations going and to bring attention to the founders and startups that are building things.
We will have 3 separate startup pitches today.
Oh, hi. My name is Maria.
And my name is Oscar.
And we are the founders of Sidewind Solution. Did you know that international shipping, if it would be treated as a country, it would be the 6th most polluters of CO2 in the world? On average, one container ship pollutes consumes about 200 tons of oil per day.
So we have a solution to lower the oil consumption of a container ship with minimum changes to the ship. So the solution is about harnessing the wind at open sea with a portable wind turbines in a open container which is recycled, and we use the energy to help the engine run, to make it hybrid. So we take these containers and we put it as a top layer on a fully loaded cargo ship, so we don't take any space from the cargo.
And we have already made a full-scale prototype in a 40-feet container that you can see outside Harpa. It will be tested with the logistic company Samskip now in September, and we will have results in the end of the year. So we are looking for investors to help us scale up the solution. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is my first Startup Iceland, and I couldn't be more excited to be here. My name is Julian Koss, and I'm the founder of Maria, a startup here in Iceland. We are developing alternative packaging solutions, and our goal is to make sure that we help companies and businesses, and particularly those in the food sector, to deliver their products in better, more sustainable, and biodegradable packagings to their customers. We do so by fully utilizing resources and repurposing seaweed waste streams, which enables us to deliver ocean-safe bioplastics, which enables us also to contribute to reduce the overwhelming use of petroleum-based single-use plastics. We are designing a circular framework that is enrooted in the circular economy. And in order to establish the basis for a global technical solution that, albeit being here in Iceland, has ramifications beyond Iceland. So if, like us, you feel compelled to contribute to bringing novel and challenging packaging solutions to the market and making them widely available, do reach out to us. And if you are an investor today, we'd also love to talk to you, and hopefully we can work together in bringing this to market ASAP. Thank you.
When you participate, you learn something new, not because you wanted to learn something new, but because you wanted to give something. And the minute you start showing up and participating, even meeting a new founder and just listening to their pitch, even though you might not hear anything from them, that would add value to the founder. But when you do that act, it actually gives a lot of dividends to you. So the mentoring sessions are a great way to get that started.
Sounds like you've got, so you can tell people what their soil is going to do. Part of Startup Iceland is these mentoring sessions. So I just spent the morning meeting in 15-minute segments with founders that are in the mix. They're on the journey. They're cutting a trail through the forest. They're climbing the mountain. And the nice thing about it is, I'm pretty transparent. Founder says, here's my challenge, and I say, okay, here's a story I know about somebody who's been through that, or if I've been through something like that, I just tell my story. And the whole goal of a mentoring session for me is to give the founder more data, more ability to navigate their current situation, And if I can be helpful in any way, I try and do that. The spirit of startups in Iceland has a practicality that is not necessarily universal in the startup culture. All the companies that I interacted with this weekend, the founders have their feet on the ground. They're thinking about how do they become profitable. They're thinking about how do I get customers. They're thinking of how do I grow sales at from the beginning. So I think it's a very exciting ecosystem rooted in practicality, which is just refreshing.
Well, I have a lot of jobs. I am a professor of human-centered design and engineering at the University of Washington in the U.S. I am also a co-founder of medical device company Shift Labs, and then I work in venture. I am a senior venture partner at Pioneer Fund and a venture partner at Pack Ventures. There are several founders who I met who are working on early stage companies who I want to recommend to an incubator that I participated in with my company. I am excited about helping them with applications and positioning for investment. And then I've also made connections just with people who share my passion for looking to startups and entrepreneurship as a way to change the world that we live in and change it for the better. I also want
So we can get back on schedule.
Okay, you're making me go back to work.
Yeah,
Okay.
go back
You
to
know,
work.
when I wasn't working on Photoshop and things like that, I'd watch the airplanes land and say, you're too high, you're too low. I'm Mike McAvoy. I am the Chief Executive Officer and founder of a company called OmniLayers. You look across the entire world, and what I find interesting is to find areas where you have strong passion. And Icelandic people are very passionate about Iceland and their world, but they also are very, very effective at getting things done. Some of the sectors that come out of, the fishing industry and products that can come out of that industry, but they require the innovation. There's lots of ways, again, to derive really great value from the fundamental underlying things that are a part of Iceland, and they're not tapped.
I'm a scientist coming into innovation and entrepreneurship, so I've just been trying to be a sponge. Yeah, most of the conversations that I've had of the mentoring have been about, and within my own role, it's finding the gaps. So what do researchers and universities have to offer, and what do they need, and what do founders, particularly if they're, they don't have maybe the scientific expertise, but they have the really cool idea and the market. So yeah, finding the gaps.
Loads of entrepreneurs here raising their pre-seed and seed rounds that are super exciting to hear about. Gunnar Holmstein, co-founder and CEO of Quest Portals. I only roll with advantage. I'm doing my own seed round. I'm just super stressful. Startup Iceland has this perfect mix of really inspiring talks and engaging conversations with founders and investors and the community around here in Iceland. I think young entrepreneurs are so often overthinking things, trying to solve everything in Excel or thinking of all the reasons things can't happen. And I really just trying to go for it. You can't figure things out in Excel, and you just have to run forward and make things happen.
I just hope that people take that leap. I've done that many times in my life. Usually I think that there's no value in doing something, but I usually take the chance and say, let me go try it out. All of us have a chance to play and a role to play in building the future. If we don't do anything about it, then we are just observing future pass by. But we take an active role in defining where we want to go and what our future needs to be, then we need to take some action. And I hope the event, Startup Iceland this year, kind of encourages people to take those actions to move us towards a better and a brighter future. And I hope people take that chance.